They say every man has two faces, the one he shows and the one he fears. But somewhere beneath politeness and logic, there sleeps a darker pulse, a wild current that few dare to touch. It is not evil. It is not chaos. It is simply real. The moment you let it breathe, the world starts to tremble. And women, those instinctive creatures of intuition, feel it before you speak a single word. She will sense it in your stillness. The way your eyes don't chase but pull. The way your silence speaks a language older than words. You are no longer a man seeking validation. You become a mirror reflecting her hidden longing to be seen, not as a body, but as a soul aching to be unveiled. This is the forbidden seduction, the kind that does not beg, flatter, or pursue. It invites. It awakens. It stirs her unconscious mind, where logic dissolves and instinct takes the throne. She will not understand why her pulse rises when your shadow brushes hers. She will only feel it, a magnetic storm between what she shows and what she secretly desires. The truth is, women do not fall for men who are perfect. They fall for men who are whole. Men who have tasted their own darkness, embraced it and tamed it without destroying it. The man who has met his demons does not need to prove his strength. His presence radiates it. His voice carries gravity because it has known silence. His eyes are deep because they have seen their own abyss. Such a man does not seduce. He reminds. He reminds her of the primal rhythm buried under the weight of civilization, the dance of danger and safety, surrender and control, love and destruction. She is drawn not to his perfection, but to the truth of his contradiction. For within that tension lies the fire that makes her feel alive. When you walk in alignment with your shadow, every movement becomes magnetic. Every glance becomes a whisper of mystery. You no longer play the game of attraction. You are the game. Because true seduction is not about conquering others. It's about mastering the universe within yourself. And when you do, she will not just want your touch. She will crave your presence. Not because you complete her, but because in your darkness she rediscovers her own light. That is the darkest forbidden seduction, not of the flesh alone, but of the soul. There is a reason why the most magnetic individuals are not those who project relentless confidence, but those who seem to carry a secret. Something about them feels untamed, dangerous even, but not in a way that repels. It attracts. It draws you closer, not because of what they show, but because of what they withhold. That hidden current, that subtle pulse of darkness beneath composure, is the essence of what we call the shadow, the unspoken, forbidden dimension of desire. Most people spend their lives running from this part of themselves. They build masks of politeness, morality, and certainty to cover it. But repression does not destroy energy. It only buries it deeper, where it grows potent and restless. The more one hides from his darker impulses, his hunger, his jealousy, his craving for control or surrender, the more those impulses command him from below the surface. A man who refuses to face his shadow becomes its servant. But the one who confronts it, understands it, and integrates it becomes its master. That is where true power begins. The psychology of seduction cannot be understood without understanding this shadow. Desire does not emerge from light. It emerges from the friction between light and dark. What makes something seductive is not its purity but its danger, its capacity to awaken feelings that civilization teaches us to suppress. When a man has made peace with his inner chaos, when he no longer fears his own appetite, his presence vibrates differently. There is depth in his eyes because he has looked inward and seen the beasts others deny. Women sense this unconsciously. They feel it as raw vitality, as authenticity, as truth. What truly drives attraction on a psychological level is not appearance or charm, it is energy. And that energy is the sum of everything you have accepted within yourself. When you repress aggression, you lose edge. When you deny vulnerability, you lose empathy. When you disown lust, you lose vitality. Integration gives birth to magnetism. A man in touch with his shadow does not need to prove himself dominant. His energy does that for him. He stands differently, moves differently, speaks with a calm certainty that comes not from arrogance but from inner unity. But this darkness must not be confused with cruelty or manipulation. That would be the shadow possessing the man, rather than the man possessing the shadow. Integration is not indulgence, it is awareness. It is knowing where your limits are and why they exist. It is being capable of destruction yet choosing not to destroy. This capacity, This self-control amid potential chaos is what ignites the deepest feminine instinct. Women are not drawn to violence. They are drawn to contained power. The man who has met his inner wolf and taught it to sit beside him, rather than letting it roam wild, emits a gravity that cannot be faked. Psychologically, this dynamic mirrors the archetypal dance between chaos and order. The feminine embodies nature's wildness, instinct, emotion, flow, while the masculine represents structure, awareness, and containment. When a man integrates his shadow, he becomes capable of holding that feminine chaos without trying to dominate or escape it. His presence becomes a safe storm, a paradox of danger and safety that allows a woman to release herself fully. It is not about seducing her body. It is about awakening her unconscious, giving permission for her own darkness to surface without shame. In this sense, seduction is not manipulation, but invitation. It is the silent call from one integrated psyche to another. I have seen my depths, come see yours. And that call is irresistible because it speaks to the parts of her she has long forgotten, the instinctual, the wild, the emotional, the forbidden. When you embody your shadow with awareness, you do not need to pursue women. They sense your wholeness and are drawn toward it like gravity. The magnetism is psychological, not performative, yet integrating the shadow demands brutal honesty. It requires a man to confront what he most despises about himself, the envy, the lust, the pride, the hunger for control. To look at these impulses without judgment is to reclaim the fragments of the soul that society forced him to exile. What he reclaims becomes fuel for creation, strength, and sensual presence. He ceases to be split between who he is and who he pretends to be, and that authenticity is the most seductive quality of all. Philosophically, this process mirrors the path toward individuation, the journey of becoming whole. It is not about becoming good in the moral sense, but real in the existential sense. Realness carries a frequency that words cannot imitate. You can feel it when someone has integrated both the saint and the sinner within themselves. They are unpredictable yet safe, mysterious yet grounded, confident yet humble. That paradox, the harmony of opposites, is what awakens fascination. To live in denial of one's shadow is to live as half a person. To embrace it with awareness is to reclaim the full spectrum of being, light and dark, masculine and feminine, divine and animal. The darkness you fear is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to complete you. And when you step into that completeness, you stop chasing attraction and start embodying it. The essence of masculine magnetism is not found in dominance, bravado, or the loud display of power. It resides in depth. True masculine energy is not about control over others, but about mastery of self. The archetype of the magnetic man is not the conqueror who chases, but the sovereign who attracts. He draws others toward him not because he demands attention, but because his presence speaks of an inner authority that no external force can grant or take away. Attraction, in its purest form, arises from polarity, the dynamic tension between the masculine and feminine. But polarity only exists where there is presence. A man who lacks inner structure cannot hold polarity for long, no matter how charming or handsome he might appear. The feminine seeks not perfection, but presence, the unshakable groundedness of one who knows who he is and what he stands for. His energy becomes an anchor, a still point in the storm, and in that stillness lies his seduction. The problem is that many men have been conditioned to suppress this natural masculine depth. They have been taught to be agreeable, harmless, and constantly seeking approval, to fit neatly into the expectations of others. But that compliance kills magnetism. A man who lives only to please loses contact with his own will, his own fire, his own direction. He becomes hollow, and no amount of surface confidence can mask that void. Women sense this instinctively. They can feel when a man's words are not backed by the weight of conviction. The truly magnetic man does not need to perform masculinity. He embodies it. His strength is quiet, not loud. His power is steady, not aggressive. He is neither submissive nor domineering, because he knows both are born from insecurity. He has faced the storm within, his fears, his ambitions, his desires, and forged them into focus. That inner order radiates outward, creating a gravitational pull. Others feel safer, more alive, simply in his presence, because his energy provides the structure that allows theirs to flow. Psychologically, This represents the archetype of the king or sovereign, but it is not a title. It is a state of consciousness. To embody it is to stand at the center of one's own psyche, to rule over the inner chaos with clarity and compassion. The masculine energy, when integrated, does not seek control over others. It provides direction, stability, and purpose. Women are drawn to this not because it dominates them, but because it liberates their own polarity. A grounded man gives the feminine permission to be fluid, emotional, and expressive without fear of collapse. This dynamic mirrors the dance of the cosmos itself, structure and movement, form and flow, consciousness and creation. The man who understands this polarity does not compete with the feminine. He harmonizes with it. His seduction is not in chasing or convincing, but in simply being the pole around which attraction naturally orbits. His words are few but carry weight. His actions are deliberate, his silence potent. Every gesture, every glance becomes charged because it arises from a place of wholeness. But to reach this state, one must confront the false masculine, the mask that pretends to be power but is actually fear in disguise. The false masculine seeks control because it lacks self-control. It seeks validation through conquest because it has not yet validated itself. It overcompensates with aggression, arrogance, or detachment because it is terrified of vulnerability. The true masculine is not afraid to feel. It is not afraid to care. It does not mistake gentleness for weakness or passion for loss of control. It is the integration of heart and strength, will and empathy. Sexually, this integration is what transforms mere desire into deep connection. The magnetic man does not use energy to impress. He channels it to connect. His awareness during intimacy is total. He is fully present, fully conscious, fully attuned. This presence creates trust, and trust opens the feminine body and soul like a flower to sunlight. It is not technique that drives women insane for him. It is consciousness. The kind of awareness that makes her feel seen beyond her surface, known beyond her words, and desired beyond her imagination. Philosophically, this form of masculinity is an act of balance. Too much control and he becomes rigid, suffocating life around him. Too little, and he becomes weak, consumed by chaos. But when he learns to balance discipline with surrender, direction with openness, he becomes a living paradox, a man who can lead without oppression, love without losing himself, and stand alone without loneliness. That balance is what women crave, not consciously but instinctively. It is what calls to the deep feminine psyche, as safety and danger entwined, a stability that can hold her storms, a presence that can meet her passion without flinching. This kind of masculine presence cannot be faked because it is not a performance. It is an outcome. It emerges only after the man has faced his internal wars and claimed victory not through suppression, but through understanding. Every failure, every heartbreak, every shadow he has integrated becomes part of his energy field, woven into a quiet confidence that needs no explanation. He has nothing to prove because he has already proven it to himself. In a world addicted to noise, the silent man who radiates presence becomes thunder. He doesn't seduce by saying more, but by saying only what is necessary. His restraint is his mystery, and his mystery is his magnetism. Women sense this as depth, the sense that he could destroy but chooses to create, that he could dominate but chooses to understand. He becomes the embodiment of polarity itself, light containing darkness, power softened by awareness. When you stand in this energy, you do not ask for attraction. You command it through your being. Not by force, but by alignment. Not through pretense, but through authenticity. The awakened masculine does not chase love. He summons it, effortlessly, by existing as the gravitational center of his own reality. The feminine is a mystery that refuses to be solved. It is not meant to be decoded, tamed, or rationalized. It is meant to be felt. It is movement, emotion, intuition, and chaos bound together in sacred rhythm. And when she encounters a man who has depth, who has met his own darkness and emerged whole, something ancient awakens within her. It is not his appearance that captivates her. It is the weight of his being. She feels him before she understands him. His presence vibrates at a frequency that touches what words cannot reach. Women are instinctive in a way men rarely grasp. Beneath social masks, beneath logic and polite conversation, there is a silent current of energy they feel immediately. They do not fall for what a man says, they fall for what his energy reveals. When his energy is fragmented, uncertain or needy, her instincts close like a gate. When his energy is grounded, aware and whole, she opens, not because she decides to, but because her nature responds. Attraction at its deepest level is not a choice. It is resonance. That resonance occurs when she feels a man who can hold her, the full spectrum of her emotion, her light and her darkness, her love and her fury. Most men seek only the parts of her that are soft and beautiful, the versions of her that flatter their ego. But the woman's soul yearns for something more dangerous, a man who can witness her chaos without flinching. When she cries, when she burns with anger, when she dissolves into passion, she wants to feel that he remains present, unmoved yet not detached. That is the essence of masculine depth, to stay open while everything around you trembles. Psychologically, this dynamic mirrors the ancient dance between the masculine as consciousness and the feminine as energy. Consciousness gives structure. Energy gives life. Without her movement, he is empty. Without his stillness, she is lost. She does not crave a man who fixes her emotions or argues her logic. She wants a man who feels her emotions through his awareness. When she senses that, when she feels that he can hold her storms without judgment or control, her trust deepens, her body softens, her soul begins to unfold. What drives women insane in the presence of such a man is not manipulation, it is recognition. It is the moment she realizes, perhaps unconsciously, that she has finally met someone who can see her not as a collection of moods or appearances, but as a vast, living symbol of life itself. She feels safe enough to surrender, not because she is weak, but because his strength is not oppressive. It is receptive. In his stillness, she rediscovers her own rhythm. Every woman, on some level, is drawn to depth because depth is rare. She is surrounded by men who seek to win her, to impress her, to analyze her, but very few who can simply witness her. The woman's attraction is to awareness, to the one who is not afraid of her intensity. She senses when a man has been initiated by life, when he has faced his inner chaos, when he has looked at his own wounds and transmuted them into wisdom. That kind of man does not seek to dominate, he seeks to understand. He doesn't shrink from emotion. He anchors it, and that anchoring is profoundly erotic to the feminine psyche. There is a misconception that women desire only strength, but strength without empathy is tyranny. What she desires is presence infused with compassion, a man who carries both sword and heart, one who can be firm without being harsh, passionate without being desperate. This duality, this ability to hold the tension between power and tenderness, is what magnetizes her beyond reason. She feels it as polarity, as an invisible pull toward the one who mirrors both her danger and her divinity. Philosophically, this connection points to the larger principle of unity through opposites. The feminine seeks to merge, the masculine to define. Yet when both are conscious, their meeting becomes alchemical. She brings chaos to test his order. He brings order to shape her chaos. Together they form a living symbol of creation itself, the eternal interplay between form and formlessness, known and unknown. The more a man embodies his depth, the more a woman's instinctive nature feels free to express itself fully. But this dynamic demands maturity. If a man approaches the feminine from ego, trying to control her emotion or prove his dominance, he will awaken resistance, not surrender. The feminine cannot open to control. It opens only to trust, and trust is earned not through manipulation, but through unwavering authenticity. When your words align with your energy, when your gaze holds truth without need, she feels it. The body knows before the mind. This is why seduction, in its highest form, is not about tactics or strategy. It is the art of being so present that your energy becomes undeniable. When a woman feels that, she does not fall for you because of something you did. She falls into herself in your presence. You become the mirror through which she rediscovers her own beauty, her own wildness, her own sacred chaos. And she will crave that reflection again and again, because it reminds her of something eternal, the dance between love and mystery. The psychological truth behind this is that every human being, male or female, seeks wholeness. The feminine, drawn to depth, is drawn unconsciously toward that wholeness reflected in the awakened masculine. What fascinates her is not perfection, but integration. She senses in such a man the possibility of completion, not because he completes her, but because his wholeness evokes her own. This is the magnetic loop of attraction, where two complete energies meet and amplify one another, rather than fill each other's voids. To understand this is to transform the way you approach connection entirely. Stop trying to impress women. Instead, embody depth. Stop chasing validation. Instead, cultivate presence. Stop fearing emotion. Instead, learn to hold it. The more aware you become of your own psyche, its shadows, wounds, and desires, the more naturally women respond. Because what they crave, beneath everything else, is the feeling of being felt. Attraction is born in tension. Not the shallow tension of uncertainty or games, but the deep psychological polarity that exists between opposites, light and shadow, dominance and surrender, certainty and mystery. It is within this tension that the erotic, the emotional, and the spiritual meet. Without contrast, there is no current. Without polarity, there is no fire. The pulse of seduction is the dance of two forces that cannot become one, yet are forever drawn toward union. Most people misunderstand this. They think attraction comes from similarity, shared interests, mutual comfort, predictable harmony. But comfort breeds familiarity, and familiarity dissolves desire. Desire thrives on difference. It is a spark that leaps between opposites, between what you show and what you hide, between what she feels safe with and what she feels slightly endangered by. The human psyche at its deepest level is not drawn to peace, it is drawn to wholeness, and wholeness only arises when the opposites within us and between us collide. This is the essence of psychological polarity. The masculine and feminine as archetypal forces are not genders but energies, one penetrative, focused, still, the other receptive, expansive, in motion. When a man embodies the clarity and groundedness of the masculine principle and a woman embodies the fluidity and openness of the feminine, a magnetic field forms between them. It is not something either person creates consciously. It happens naturally as night is drawn to dawn. The deeper the polarity, the stronger the attraction. Yet in modern relationships, this polarity often collapses because both sides have lost contact with their essence. The man becomes uncertain, over-accommodating or detached, and the woman, sensing his absence, unconsciously moves into his role, taking charge, controlling, leading emotionally. The dance reverses and desire fades. This is not because love disappears, but because polarity does. Love connects the hearts, but polarity electrifies the bodies and souls. Without it, passion turns into friendship, and connection loses its spark. To reawaken this primal charge, one must understand that tension is not the enemy. It is the lifeblood of attraction. The interplay between dominance and surrender is not about control but about rhythm. When a man embodies calm command, not domination but inner authority, he creates a field of stability in which the feminine can surrender safely. And her surrender is not submission. It is trust. It is her way of saying, I feel your depth. I can let go now. That exchange is the psychological and erotic heartbeat of seduction. Every woman, consciously or unconsciously, is drawn to a man who can hold her intensity without losing himself. She tests, not to manipulate but to measure depth, to feel if he can remain present when her emotions surge, when her unpredictability surfaces. These tests are not challenges to his worth, but invitations to authenticity. The moment he reacts with fear, defensiveness, or ego, she feels the polarity collapse. But when he remains still, when he does not resist or retreat, his groundedness amplifies her passion. She feels the pull of the ancient balance, the interplay of order and chaos, of structure and flow. This polarity is not purely sexual. It is existential. It mirrors the duality within every human soul. We all carry both forces inside us, the need for control and the desire for surrender, the longing to express and the longing to be witnessed. When a man integrates his inner feminine, he becomes more empathetic, intuitive, and emotionally intelligent. When he simultaneously anchors himself in his masculine clarity, he becomes unshakable. That union within himself allows him to create it externally. The relationship becomes a reflection of his inner harmony. Philosophically, this is the secret of all creation. The universe itself is born of polarity, the union of chaos and cosmos, expansion and contraction, light and darkness. Every heartbeat is a rhythm of opposites, tension and release, Desire follows the same law. When you remove tension, you remove life. When you overindulge in chaos, you lose direction. But when you learn to balance both, to live on the knife's edge between control and surrender, you embody the archetype of conscious power. That is the true seductive force, not manipulation but mastery of duality. Many men mistake dominance for polarity. They believe they must assert control or display aggression to appear powerful. But true dominance has nothing to do with aggression. It is the silent strength of one who does not need to prove anything. His dominance is self-mastery. His power is his awareness. The more conscious he becomes of his inner polarities, the more magnetic he becomes to the opposite energy. He stops chasing because he is the pole. The feminine orbits him not because he demands it, but because she feels safe within his gravity. Similarly, surrender from the feminine is not weakness. It is strength in another form. It takes immense courage to open, to trust, to flow. Her surrender is not defeat. It is her deepest expression of power. And when a man can honor that surrender, without exploiting it or fearing it, something transcendent occurs. The relationship becomes not a transaction, but a ritual, a sacred dance of energy that awakens both to their fullest aliveness. This is the psychology of polarity. The more consciously you embody your essence, the more vividly life responds. You stop fighting against tension and begin to work with it. Every conversation, every glance, every touch becomes a dance of opposites. Assertion and allowance, steadiness and play, structure and spontaneity. In that rhythm, attraction becomes effortless. When you live from this awareness, you no longer seek to manipulate the other. You simply remain true to your own energy. And that authenticity creates magnetic contrast. You become both the calm and the storm, both the light and the shadow. In your presence, others feel the pulse of life itself, the dynamic balance that underlies all creation. To embody polarity is to become a living paradox, disciplined yet free, grounded yet wild, detached yet deeply connected. It is to stand between chaos and order, and call both by name. And when you do, the world responds. The feminine responds, because what draws her in is not your perfection, it's your balance. Power in its purest form is not what you project outward, it is what you integrate inward. The essence of seduction, of leadership, of true presence, lies not in manipulation but in integration. Every human being carries within them a constellation of desires, fears, instincts, and ideals. Most people, however, live divided, constantly at war with parts of themselves they cannot face. They repress the impulses that scare them, the emotions that overwhelm them, the longings that shame them. Yet what is buried does not die. It transforms into shadow. And that shadow becomes the invisible hand, directing every thought, every attraction, every failure in love. The path to irresistible magnetism begins with reconciliation, with the courage to face the totality of who you are and bring it into harmony. A man who cannot face his own darkness cannot hold another's. A man who fears his own passion will never be trusted with hers. When you integrate your shadow, not by indulging it but by understanding it, you become whole. And wholeness is power. Not the loud performative kind that demands recognition, but the quiet gravitational kind that draws recognition without effort. Integration transforms desire itself. When a man is fragmented, his desires are desperate. They chase what they lack, but when he becomes whole, his desire becomes radiant. He no longer seeks to consume. He seeks to connect. Women feel this immediately. The energy of a fragmented man feels hungry, needy, searching for completion. The energy of an integrated man feels full, grounded, overflowing with presence. She feels his desire not as a demand, but as a current, an invitation into his wholeness. Psychologically, this transformation mirrors the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming an integrated self. Every polarity within the psyche, love and aggression, reason and instinct, masculine and feminine, must eventually find dialogue rather than conflict. The more inner harmony you create, the less you need to control the external world. People who live in inner division constantly seek control outside themselves. People who have found unity radiate control naturally. That is why true seduction feels effortless. It is not a technique, it is an emanation. In sexuality, integration expresses itself as total presence. The integrated man is not fragmented between thought, body, and emotion. He does not perform. He embodies. His touch carries intention. His gaze carries truth. His silence carries awareness. He listens not only with his mind, but with his entire nervous system. His presence becomes so complete that it pulls the other into a deeper awareness of themselves. In his stillness, she feels her own depths awaken. This is not a psychological trick. It is the meeting of two whole beings who have accepted every part of their nature. But integration also demands humility. To become whole, you must accept that you are not purely light. You are capable of cruelty, envy, lust, and selfishness. You must not deny those capacities. You must understand them. Only then can you channel them consciously, rather than letting them erupt unconsciously. Repression breeds corruption. Awareness breeds mastery. To integrate darkness is not to glorify it. It is to domesticate it, to turn it from predator to guardian. When your shadow becomes your ally, it no longer sabotages your desires. It empowers them. This is what separates superficial charm from genuine charisma. Charm is performance. It ends when the mask slips. Charisma flows from authenticity. It is what happens when every part of you speaks in harmony. People feel safe in the presence of someone who is internally aligned because they sense no hidden agenda. The integrated person radiates congruence. Their words, actions, and energy all point in the same direction. That alignment is rare, and because it is rare, it is intoxicating. Philosophically, integration is the reconciliation of opposites, the return to unity. The self, once divided between heaven and hell, learns that both belong to the same soul. This is what makes an individual truly magnetic. They no longer reject any part of existence. They carry light without arrogance, darkness without shame. They embody paradox. And that paradox draws others in, because it reflects the human condition itself. Beautiful, flawed, mysterious, whole. In relationships, integration manifests as emotional maturity. The integrated man no longer blames, clings, or fears loss. He recognizes that love cannot be controlled. It can only be invited. He gives without losing himself and receives without guilt. Because he is whole, he does not seek completion in another. He seeks expansion. His love is not dependency. It is resonance. His seduction is not conquest. It is communion. Women feel this as both safety and danger. The safety of his consciousness, the danger of his aliveness. That balance is irresistible because it mirrors life itself. Integration is not a destination, but a practice. It requires constant awareness, the willingness to meet every new fear, every new desire, every new shadow that emerges as you evolve. The moment you stop integrating, you begin fragmenting again. Wholeness must be lived daily, through choices that align your words with your truth, your actions with your intent, and your desires with your values. Each alignment deepens your energy, sharpens your presence, and strengthens your magnetism. When you live this way, power ceases to be something you chase. It becomes something you are. You move through the world without trying to impress or dominate, because your energy already speaks for you. Your silence becomes eloquent. Your gaze carries weight. Your presence transforms the atmosphere, not because you seek control, but because you are in control of yourself. Integration is the bridge between the psychological, the sexual, and the spiritual. It is the art of becoming indivisible, and in a fragmented world, indivisibility is the rarest and most seductive form of power. It commands attention not through performance, but through being. It awakens in others what lies dormant in themselves, the longing to be whole.